Welcome to Damsels in Dialogue, a podcast dedicated to female protagonists in fiction, film, and the stage. Co-hosted by India Marie Paul
and Katie Zutter. For our fourth season, we take a deep dive into the leading ladies of the Golden Age musicals and discuss just how well these Hollywood and Broadway characters have aged.
This episode, we journey through Runyon's stylized New York City and see if Miss Sarah Brown can save a gambler's soul and if Miss Adelaide can get over her bad, bad cold in Frank Loesser's Guys and Dolls.
I would like to start with a fun fact.
Please do.
Now, this is a silly fun fact. Because upon doing very casual familiarizing myself before this next bit I'm going to tell you, looking it up, and there's many websites with things like reviewing musicals and what they're good for and stuff like that. And this one is great for high school and college. And, there are a lot of men in it, but super comfortable for all ages, that kind of thing. Super fun. Did it in my college. It's on everyone's resume when I host auditions. How have I avoided ever doing this musical? I have never seen it. I haven't gotten
to do it either.
I've never seen it. Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at us. Never seen it. Never even had the opportunity. I've never even auditioned. How did I avoid? I've never seen the movie.
Ooh, fun.
I've never seen anything. Never seen anything about it. How did it come to this where I'm like, wow, this is a touch embarrassing? Because I know this is a standard. And I know reading through, and I'm reading through what bits I can find of the script and stuff. And listening to the music. I'm I knew almost every song. How have I avoided this musical for so long? Unintentionally.
Yeah. Was
really the same funny. For you? Did you get to audition for it? Did you get to
I've never
see
auditioned for it. I've never. Fun fact is I'm actually getting to see this musical in October because I have a friend in a local production, but I've never seen it. I've never auditioned in person. I've seen the movie, but in person, never auditioned for it. It was never done at the time where I was at the places. It was always something that had been done a couple years before. Or when I leave an area, it's done right after. But I've never seen the stage show before.
Amazing. So what I'm hearing is future India listening to this right now.
Yes, once in January. Comes out,
how was it? Did you love it? Did you love it? Was it great?
To be
How
continued.
did it compare to our research? I can't wait to hear it. Thank you.
Well, it's been really cool because I work in the office with the performer Jessica who's in it, and I've been sending her this is the new thing that I learned about Guys and Dolls. So it's been really cool to share that as I'm casually walking down the hallway and researching this. But that's so funny because it is done so much, and it is just a go-to. It actually, I was talking to her about this, it aged pretty darn well because there's nothing that controversial in it. Right. There's nothing really political about it. It's very relationship heavy, which is very timeless.
Yes.
So there's a couple different things, but it really didn't age bad at all. So you could still put it on and you don't have to change the script.
Right.
There's nothing in it that you have to change the script when you do it nowadays. So I'm that's a pretty big deal.
There's no weirdness in Havana, right?
No, there's not any characters really in Havana. It's just them being there. There's not
amazing.
There's a couple. There's featured dancers, but they don't have lines, so it's not there's some, and it's basic jealousy that happens in Havana. So it's not even about exoticism. It's nothing like that. It's
amazing.
It's just drunk
that was my
Sarah.
concern too. Because once again, I'm reading.
Yeah.
I'm reading it and not seeing it. So I'm here are my potential red flags.
Yeah, it could easily.
But who knows?
Yeah, it could easily have turned into that. But
that's really good to hear.
Yeah, it's focused on them. There's he dances with another the featured Havana dancer, and she gets jealous, and she dances with someone else, and then they end up in a bar fight. That's it.
Phenomenal.
So it's all dance.
As you do.
So yeah, I was really impressed because I was expecting to find things in this musical with these women, and I actually left being really impressed with them as characters.
So good to hear.
Yeah, I'm more impressed with the characters they came from because I did find some good origin story stuff, which is really exciting. So, Guys and Dolls.
Yes.
is a famous Broadway show. Kind of the production history of it is like they did a tryout in Philadelphia in the fall of 1950, and every single performance was like a new change. They said 40 of the 41 shows were completely different. So like they were constantly changing this thing. They debuted on Broadway in 1950. Loesser won the Tony for it. It was a massive hit on Broadway. It ran for 1,200 performances. They made a movie in 1955 with lots of famous people, which we will get to. Because that's probably what, when people reference it, that's what they go to. It was such a big hit as a movie as well.
Yeah.
And not
to put
that
the movie
many
out
changes happened.
so fast after the film.
Yeah.
And the movie came out so fast after the musical, Katie. But that's awesome. Yeah. It's really, clearly it was doing well.
It was doing really well on both facets. And then there was a couple Broadway revivals that were really famous. There was a 1976 all-black cast revival, which got really great reviews and stuff. And then in 1992, there's the famous revival with Nathan Lane as Nathan Detroit. And he nails it. So that's a really cool production history that they've had. It's one of the most produced musicals of all time. There actually is rumor of a movie redo.
Oh.
There hasn't been any release date.
Interesting.
But they have a musical director picked out. Channing Tatum was teased to be in it. Like, I don't know.
Can he sing?
He can dance. He can dance.
I'm not worried about that with him.
But Nathan, if he's Nathan, he doesn't have to sing. Because the Nathan Detroit track does not have to sing. It's not built to do that, which we'll get into the drama of the movie. So cool.
Which of the two, that would make the most sense?
Yeah.
I feel like for Tatum.
Like, they probably want him to be Sky because he's like the like sexy romantic ingenue in it, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
If he can't sing, we don't want that.
I don't want to hear another version of Luck Be a Lady that with someone who can't sing.
Yeah.
No offense, Brando. We'll get there too. So Guys and Dolls came about because Cy Feuer, I'm sorry, Cy.
Your guess is as good as mine.
And Ernest H. Martin.
I also read that in my head exclusively.
Feuer. Yeah, I haven't actually tried to say it out loud until this moment. But they're legendary Broadway producers. So they came up with the idea for Guys and Dolls after Martin's wife, Nancy, was reading Damon Runyon's short stories, and the short story collection was called Guys and Dolls. They instantly chose it as the title for the next musical. They had no plot or music. They just we're going to do this.
I love that they pick and chose. Katie, get it together.
Okay. It's okay.
I love that they pick and chose which stories to go from too.
Yeah.
And you can see some of those blatant, this is from that.
Yeah.
Oh, but this is from this one. That was kind of fun to see.
It was really cool. And there's the women are from specific stories, which are really, really cool. And they actually, the Runyon estate allowed them to not know which stories they were going to choose as they were developing it. So it was a really unique contract too, because they didn't have a plot. They're just we like Runyon. Because he created this entire Runyonland, is what they called it, this stylized version of New York gamblers and vaudeville people and performers and all this stuff that he created, this inspired by Broadway's nightlife in the 40s and 50s.
Right.
So it was a really cool world. They're we're going to do that. We don't know what, but we're going to do it.
Almost like a historical fantasy.
It really was.
Almost.
And how they talked was so overdramatic. You can hear that in the musical too, but that's how he wrote them. Some of his stuff is really hard to read because I'm I don't know what this means. I don't know what a C or a G. I know what a G is for $1,000, but what's a C note? I don't know what a C note is. I had to look up all these. So there's a whole bunch of his own style of language that he did. What's cool about this score is the plot was the last thing that happened. So they hired Frank Loesser, and he started writing with no plot. And just started writing inspired by Runyon's work.
On the bright side, that's how a lot of musicals were made in this time period.
True.
Right? Where they just pulled songs together that were famous. Because like you said in the last episode, I mean, the charts were
pop music. Yeah. And this was no exception. The songs from this are famous jazz standards at this point. But yeah, these are all new songs that he wrote. And he started with Fugue for Tin Horns, which ended up being in the opening eventually. But he wrote a whole bunch of songs that never had any plot to them. So then they brought in a book writer who failed to kind of connect everything. And then they hired a new book writer who was more of a comedian that finally found a way to tie in a story that worked. And they used Loesser's songs as guideposts.
Nice.
So like he really had the driving force of the show was his music, and then the plot came after, which was kind of cool. So basically, Miss Sarah Brown and Miss Adelaide, no last name, came from two very specific short stories. The Sarah Brown plot came first. It was from The Idyll of Miss Sarah Brown. And then the director actually suggested adding a second story to parallel Miss Brown and Sky Masterson. So he kind of entered Adelaide and Detroit. And those stories kind of come from Pick a Winner and Blood Pressure. The name
I'm so glad they added that.
You know what?
It really adds to it to have the second couple.
Well, that's it. That was a really standard thing to do in the 1950s. Mm-hmm. Like, you had the two opposing forces as what they consider the main plot. My question to you is, who do you feel has the most weight in this musical?
That's tough because it still feels like the gentlemen still have the most weight. Mm-hmm. I will say, especially if we're going to compare this to literally the episode right before this, White Christmas, where there's two gentlemen, two women, like obviously different stories, but it's both two couples getting together in the end. This one does balance the women a lot better. There are a lot more women stuff in it, and it felt like they had moments where they actually moved the plot on their own and weren't just devices. Yeah, but it still felt like just, I think only because like the inciting incident and what the story hinges on is that bet they made. Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
So it doesn't, but what's cool is it doesn't feel like it's one couple versus one couple. You know what I mean? Like both couples to me are weighted equally. Yeah. It's just this bet that these guys have is what kind of drives the story. I don't know if that answered your question, but
it does, because like I do think by the end, the two couple, like this two story, like I think the women are way more balanced in this. I think they have a lot more agency. We'll get into that in a hot second, but like I was really happy about that. But there is most of Act 1, and in the movie, the first half of this movie, there's so much Detroit and Adelaide things going on that you lose that main plot of Sarah and them until you get into Havana. So like I feel like the weight eventually balances with Act 2 and like the ending of Act 1 being focused on them. But I sat there halfway through and I went, wow, I really have no idea what's going on with Brown or like Masterson. I'm just like focused and care about Adelaide getting married. Like they're just
you also correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, Adelaide's your fave.
Oh God, yeah. Like I loved her. I knew I loved her, and then I reread it and watched it. I'm like, man, she's awesome. Like I just like the lines. The movie actually makes her, I think, even better.
That's awesome to hear.
I was really impressed with it, and it's the same woman doing both the movie and the Broadway original.
That's all. Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
did really the other actors do that too?
No, I think it was the director wanted the original Nathan Detroit, but I think I have to look at my notes, but the producer was like, no, it has to be like Sinatra.
Which I get it, because he was the big movie dude at the time. I get it. And
I'm not sure the Sarah Browns were different, but the first Sarah Brown did not have a great experience with Frank Loesser. So I don't know if that factored into it at all or not. Because Frank Loesser was known to have a very hot temper. And there's a story in like an interview with her and a couple of memoirs about she was having a hard time getting one of her solos because he makes everyone sing full out all the time.
That's exhausting.
Are you
kidding me? Dude, you can wreck voices that way.
Yes. And she was singing If I Were a Belle, which is this huge soprano song. And so she's quoted remembering this, and it's one night. Wait, no. If I Were a Belle, that's actually a nice thing. I'll get back to that one. She was rehearsing I'll Know. This is the one that had the issue.
Okay.
So in someone's memoir, they recalled that she was breaking somewhere in the middle of her range and she could never do it. And he's like, who the hell could? It's such a hard thing to like sing. He said, we're rehearsing it. And again, she breaks. Frank Loesser walks up and gets up on the conductor's podium and he hits her.
Absolutely
right
not.
Smack on the nose.
Absolutely not.
And she starts to cry.
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And this is one of the producers is recalling this. This is his quote. And it says, the only guy I ever saw punch a soprano in the nose. And he said he took a swing at me once too. So
are you kidding me? I hate that.
Yeah, I was really disappointed when I read that.
And they just let that happen. And then they just continued to let him write musicals.
Yep.
And then gave him a Tony.
Yeah, and then he got a Tony for it, yeah. And he never apologized for it, but his wife sent her a dozen roses that night. So that doesn't
sounds
help.
like marital abuse.
No, that doesn't.
That sounds like I understand what he does, and I
Yeah.
am fixing up his problems yet again. I hate that.
Yeah. So that was kind of the unfun history.
So that was a bold accusation on my part, but
that was the unfun history of that rehearsal process with her. Isabel Bigley was the original Sarah Brown, who had that happen to her, and Vivian Blaine was the original and in the movie for Adelaide.
But like we said, like, I don't know, the women feel weighted the same to me.
I agree with that.
Like, not in a bad way, in a great way.
Yeah. No, I think
like it doesn't.
Very happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to do my quick changes from the original story. Miss Sarah Brown is a little bit sassier in the short story original, and I really liked it. Like, it was really cool. It starts with, instead of Sky never meeting her before, he purposefully starts, like, following her because he finds her really attractive and trying to get her attention, and she's, like, avoiding him because she knows he's a gambler. So he's, like, actively trying to pursue her as a date.
That would be really funny. That would be really funny if she had, they had set that precedent of her turning him down constantly. And then Nathan being like, well, good luck.
Yeah. Like,
I'm going to win the bet.
It was cool. Like, in the movie, Sky doesn't show up until like 19 minutes into the film, which I thought was hilarious. But she's described as a young doll who is tootling on a cornet. So they let her be a cornet player in the short story. Tootling? Tootling on a cornet. She is tall and thin and has a first-class shape, and her hair is a light brown going on blonde, and her eyes are like I don't know what, except that they are 100% eyes in every respect. Furthermore, she is not a bad cornet player. So that's her description. She is described as actually really smart and able to take care of herself. Like, she's very, like, independent, has agency in the short story, which I thought was really cool. What is different about this, too, is Sarah Brown shows up at a crap game, at Nathan Detroit's crap game in the short story, and tells Sky that he can't, it's not okay for him to try to win souls with money and betting. Like, that's not how we do it. So she gets mad that he's trying to do it, finds out about it, goes down to the crap game herself, and then gambles for Sky's soul at the crap game. And she says, I will gamble with you, Mr. Sky. I will gamble with you on the same terms you gamble with these partiers here. This $2 against your soul, Mr. Sky. It is all I have, but it is more than your soul is worth. So I'm like, get it. Get it.
Great, get it, girl. Get it, girl.
She wins and walks out of the game. And you find out later that because she showed up, he didn't end up killing someone because he had brought a gun to the crap game.
Oh my god.
Because someone was like cheating, and that's not like his go-to. So like, because she shows up, he doesn't end up killing someone because they were cheating at crap. And she wins his soul, and then he joins the mission, is super happy playing the bass drum. They get married. It says he's never been happier in his life. And it ends with, and the truth is that the dice with which she wins the Sky's soul, and which are the same dice with which Brandy Bottle Bates wins all of his potatoes, are strictly phony, and that she gets into Nathan Detroit's just in time to keep the Sky from killing old Brandy Bottle. So she used a phony piece of dice to win, but she didn't know.
Oh,
so it's like a cool little like turn there at the end where we find out like she keeps him from killing the cheater, but she actually used the cheater's dice to win his soul, and now he's happy and they're together.
Right.
So like that's kind of like the fact that she goes in to the crap game.
Yeah, that's the cool part.
I was like, oh wow, like that's a whole other Sarah Brown. I really enjoyed that. So that was a really cool thing
because
to
she's
read.
not as, I mean, she's still like not about him at the beginning.
Yeah.
But she's not like that hard.
Yeah, she's
like,
not going down
aggressive.
to the crap game. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And then Adelaide is known as Miss Cutie Singleton in her story, Pick the Winner, which is just fabulous.
Was this written by a man? Absolutely.
Singleton, I get it. And it is about the fact that he won't marry her, like they're always about to get married. That tracks. He's Hot Horse Charlie in this. Nathan Detroit, the name, and his crap game comes from the story Blood Pressure, but she's not involved in it.
Right.
So that's for a different time. But pick a winner. It says, for going on 10 years, Miss Cutie Singleton and Hot Horse Herbie are engaged, and it is well known to one and all that they are to be married as soon as Herbie makes a scratch. So that's like the constantly doing that. She's a manicurist at a hotel, so she still has a job in it, which is pretty cool.
Love that.
Love that for her. There's a little misogyny in this story, which is bleh, just in the writing of it.
The whole thing of, and that's the thing we can talk about later, but what really bothers me about Adelaide is like, why are you waiting for him for 14 years? He's not worth it. I don't understand.
Oh,
you could do better, and that drives me up the wall.
That's her huge flaw. Like, are there people like that exist? Yes. It's a very frustrating flaw, but it's the one that she has. Which, okay, so that you're going to like her better in this because... Good. Because they end up going to Miami. She keeps being referred to as ever-loving fiance, which I hate. Like, that keeps happening.
Well, it's okay. Written by men.
Written by men, it's fine. I get it. Written by man, different time period.
Makes sense.
Still has sense. Women making decisions, so what can you do? Mm-hmm. So basically...
Are they making decisions, though, if she can't get married to this guy? That she desperately wants to get married?
Yeah. Well, at that, yeah. That's a whole other, time period thing, too. Mm-hmm. But in this story... There's a professor. Okay. She all she wants is to settle down. White House, green shutters, that kind of thing. Of course.
Great. Yes, that is totally fine to want.
Yeah. She mentions something similar in the show and in the movie.
Yes, yeah. She wants to settle down.
There's this professor that Hot Horse Charlie, which is is Nathan Detroit in this, and he helps a professor learn how to gamble, and that's sometimes you do that, you get a little bit of money if they start making money. So one of her side jobs when they needed lots of money was to pretend to be a fortune teller. And so they use this to help the professor who believes in fortune tellers to make a bigger bet because he tells her what horse that she sees, that kind of stuff. But she finds out and goes on a walk with this professor as they're walking to different places to have dinner and stuff, that he has a house that's a white house with green shutters. So...
Okay. How does girl get her bank?
So he ends up winning big on the horse, that the horse loses on the bet that they had made him put more money on. But then Hot Horse Charlie comes back and finds a note, and Miss Cutie Singleton is gone with the professor, not waiting around for him.
See, that is better. That is better. Get what you want. Make the decisions. Not sit around and wait for him. Are you kidding me? Yep.
Here's what she writes in her note.
I'm so excited. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. I'm just very excited.
You're good. Dear Herbie, she says, I do not believe in long engagements anymore, so Professor Woodhead and I are going to Palm Beach to be married tonight and are leaving for Princeton, New Jersey at once, where I'm going to live in a little white house with green shutters and vines all around and about. Goodbye, Herbie, the note says. Do not eat any bad fish. Respectfully, Mrs. Professor Woodhead. Mrs. Professor Woodhead.
As she should.
Yeah.
As she should.
Yep. So, and it ends...
I love that.
It ends with her being happily married and the professor being still has no idea he got conned at all for things. Yeah. And ends up saying, oh, by the way, I interpreted her vision a little differently. I put more money on the horse that actually won. Here's your cut of it, even though my wife thinks I shouldn't give it to you.
Amazing. That's so much better. What the heck?
So that's Miss Cutie Singleton.
Amazing.
I loved it so much. I'm like, that's the Adelaide I want. That's her.
How fun.
Yeah. Those are kind of their origin stories. We talked a little bit about the infamous slap that happened in the rehearsal process. Yes.
Talking about that, though, the actors, it sounds like, at least from music-wise, they had no influence. They were not allowed to do anything but what Loesser said.
I couldn't find...
Did they affect the book at all?
I couldn't find anything that led to believe that. It was a lot. It seemed like it was very much like a boys' room of let me make all these jokes and take these stories and stuff.
I feel like this is going to be a tradition for this particular season, but I'm going to keep asking.
Yeah, no, I tried to search for let me find stories, and then I found that, and I went, well, that's not a fun story. Yeah, so I couldn't find. Oh, this was my note. So after this, a few years after Guys and Dolls, Isabel Bigley retired. Obviously, this experience didn't make her want to stay.
I hate that.
There is another story for If I Were a Belle, was written. She said, one night about 1:00 in the morning, Frank called me and said, get dressed down and get down to my suite. And she met him and one of the producers, and we're going to try a song, do it in front of the curtain and pretend you're drunk. And they worked until 5 in the morning, and they said, okay, we're going to put it in the matinee.
Nice.
So 5:00 in the morning done, doing it in the afternoon in the show.
Yeah.
And they all looked at it like they were crazy and said, well, we'll know if it's going to work. And if it works, then we'll work on it. Go home for a couple hours and we'll see you at the matinee.
Yeah.
And it got a standing ovation, and they never changed it.
That's awesome.
So
but that's what you know.
Cool.
You got to feel real confident when you add things to the show and have it be so well received.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So like that was that was during like the tryout period, I believe, in Philadelphia. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of like, the rehearsal process was much more like Loesser wrote all these things, and they brought in, so like they had one book writer didn't work, another book writer came in and made it work. And there was kind of like,
I just was curious.
Yeah, I tried. I hope that, I mean, I don't see how Vivian Blaine couldn't have made Adelaide her own, no matter what he wrote, because she has like the definitive version of it, because she's now in the movie and in the Broadway thing. There was discussion of Marilyn Monroe wanted to be Adelaide, and the director said absolutely not.
Oof.
So there's that. And then
I feel like she could do it, but it'd be really hard to work with.
It'd be so like different. The amount of like quickness that lament takes, like I don't know that I enjoy Marilyn Monroe in a lot of roles.
Oh yeah,
but, like,
she's incredibly talented.
I don't know that would have worked. Grace Kelly was considered for Sarah. She was unavailable. And Betty Grable was considered for Adelaide, but she was unavailable. So Vivian wasn't first offered it, but she ended up immediately getting it after the initial ones.
Good girl.
Good, get it. Brando was pushed for by the screenwriter, and they brought in a British actress, Jean Simmons, who got along really great with the director, and she was brought in to do Sarah for the movie.
Yeah.
But I kind of skipped through to the movie development quickly just because they are so similar. There are additions that were made because Frank Sinatra was in it. They wrote a new song. They took out a couple songs. There is one song in particular I want to ask you about. So they added 3 songs to the movie. They deleted 5. Some of them are like, one of the songs they deleted was the female duet, which sucks.
That's I was gonna say sexist, but I will instead say unsurprising.
Yeah, it's not so. Like that's. But I want to start now from like the beginning of the story of the musical movie and work our way through, because I want to talk about Marry the Man today, because it's a really cool part of the script and a part of like, it's a trope. The female duet is a trope that was very prevalent in the 50s and continues to be a trope in musical theater, I think, kind of because of that. There wasn't a lot of that beforehand.
Prior,
from what I can tell. I could be wrong. You know, I'm a human. So there's a lot of physical comedy in this movie. You kind of get introduced to Sarah right away, which is really cool. She like calls out a drunk guy at the beginning of her song and everything. So Sarah is the typical straight-laced character who, through getting drunk, loosens up.
Which, honestly, Queen, don't we all?
Well, that's it. Like, I debated with myself. I'm like, is this like okay? I'm like, but that's real. Like how they handle it. Like I get it.
What we do.
Yeah, it's like I get it. Like if she's
as humans, not even just women, just people in general. I feel like you loosen up with a glass of wine or a glass of milkshake.
The milkshake, girl. You are smart. Like you are allowed to be smart in this musical, and I'm like, you were fooled by milkshake. Also, like, did they hide it that well? I don't know that they hid it that well.
No.
I
can't imagine something being called a milkshake being hidden that well. But I mean, but still, that didn't bother me either.
Yeah.
That
and I thought
she loosened up with that.
If I Were a Belle is such a good drunk person song, and to give that to the straight-laced character is hilarious because
it's fun.
It's so fun. And I was really impressed with Sky never being inappropriate. There is one. Yeah. There is one moment he's inappropriate, and it bothered me. And he kisses her. He grabs her and kisses her.
Oh yes. But she reacts right away. She
does.
Like hits him, right?
So she in the movie she sinks into it, and then he walks out, and as he's going to the door, she slaps him. Okay. So like there is repercussions to it, which is nice. Yeah. But also I went ew.
Was that necessary?
Not necessary at all.
In the musical,
yeah.
I don't know if you were able to find snippets that were in high school, and I didn't love it for them, but it wasn't going to be helpful for me.
Yeah.
From what I read, I guess you could direct it however you want, but I feel like to make that moment less cringy if you still made him kiss her.
Yeah.
Even attempting to kiss her, her slapping immediately after, I think is better.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I watched the movie, I went, ooh, this is too long of a kiss. She's enjoying it now, but she was really pushing him away. Yeah. It was one of those like where she was like actively trying to push him away, but then you see her like sink into it. So she actually like enjoyed it, you know, because then you got the romance and then she slaps him.
Because that's not when they like he gets a little overwhelmed, right? In that moment, because he's like, okay, this was a bet, but like maybe I'm interested. But she doesn't quite feel the same.
There is like
there's
heat
after that.
Yeah.
Right.
There's like heat and tension building between them as they kind of he's not what she expected. And there's a really great costume designer worked with the actress and the director to create a tick in the movie. So the second button of her jacket, she constantly unbuttons and rebuttons. And it's a really great character trait that the costume designer like helped develop for them.
Yeah.
Which is just a really cool character thing in the movie that I love.
Was the costume designer a woman or a man?
I believe it was a woman, from what I could find. Yeah.
Just want to give her credit, man.
Yes. I'm sure at some point in my notes, I will probably be like, oh, this is what this was.
No, I just wanted to make sure because that is a very like, not that men don't do that
Irene
as well,
Sheriff.
But thank you, Irene.
Because they wanted to signal her desire to be free from her prim existence.
All right.
Yeah, get it. I love it. Like, it was a great thing. I noticed it right away, and it was a great tick because then she loses her buttons in Savannah, and her jacket's open. So I'm like, there's some storytelling. There's some storytelling.
That's cool with the costume. That's really smart in the movie.
Yeah.
That's very smart.
I'm sure people have like adapted it to now becoming a stage thing because it's so famous. But like, that's a really cool thing that the costume designer built into this character.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. I went back and forth about her being drunk, but I actually like believed it. And I believe like that there's so much more complex in this musical than even what we got last time, because you see them, because she gets drunk, she's allowed to kind of talk about like romance and that she has an idea of what she wants. And then you kind of find that she's not like, she's happy with what she wants, but maybe she's kind of looking for something else. Like you get some layers of her in Havana when she's really drunk and then gets super jealous that Sky is dancing with someone else. So she tries to make him jealous by dancing with someone and then ends up in a full-blown bar fight. That's when I'm like, is this really like, are we just playing with the like prim person going all like loose, or are we a step farther than what I believe? And in the movie, she's like full on punching a bunch of people.
Okay, that seems a little dramatized.
Yes,
maybe.
Yeah, that's where I went.
Right, and it's like definitely. I feel like you forgive that a little bit because of the era, because everything. There was a lot of physical humor.
Yeah. Oh, this movie is so full of physical humor. The first opening number, you don't sing from like, it's a huge like thing, and all of in the musical and in the movie, they capture it pretty well. There's all these stage directions about the different people you see coming. It's a beast. It is a beast to direct because they have all these little skits and things that you see traveling through New York before you even start a few chords for tin horns or whatever.
Is it like almost like Bell opening number?
Yeah.
Like the prologue where you see all the different, but with no speech?
With no speech.
Wow.
Like, and the movie does a whole opening of like traveling through the city and seeing these different like bits and different like physical humor of things. And like, it's a really cool opening. And I was looking at that as a director going like, wow, that's a number. Like you have to stage that.
That's a beast.
Yeah, like that's a whole thing. So that's really cool that they included that kind of work. But this physical humor is everywhere. But it was also cool that there's a woman in a bar fight in this movie.
Included her even in just the physical humor.
Yeah.
Because we didn't, and it's not like, Miss Vera couldn't do it.
Yep.
She was more in tune with her body than anybody else on that damn movie.
Yep.
But like
Yep.
that was not given her. So it's I really like that they allowed a female to have that silly comedic humor with her body and
legitimately
give
was
her that
punching
opportunity.
people, like stage punching people. I'm like, yeah, that's amazing. Well, and also that something that hit me as I was watching Adelaide's Lament, because she's hilarious one, but she allows herself to be funny. Like her face contorts. She allows her face to do silly things in a world in which that wasn't always encouraged for women on screen to make silly faces.
Yeah.
Like that. It was,
and she's a showgirl too.
Yeah.
So she's supposed to be like the, dare I say, like the sexiest of the women in that time. Yeah. But like showgirls, I feel like were the models of that time.
Oh, yeah. And she's an older show. Like it's commented that she's older. So we also have a middle-aged woman taking a front seat in this show, which is really, really cool. And that she is desirable and that she is sexy. And that's really, really cool. In what the movie does better than the musical is some of the lines that they give Adelaide.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So there are specific lines that they give her that are I looked up to make sure that they were only in the movie. Like the version of Adelaide still feels very similar. Right. But the specific lines that the movie has when they're trying to rush her out to get out of the way while they're talking about the crap game. And they say they're like, who's going to pay for the cab? Because they tell her to take a cab. Like he's like, go take a cab. Like, don't be out like with your cold and everything. And she says, I am, of course, because she's the one with the money. Yeah. And then, so when everyone's like, who's going to pay? She's like, I am, and walks off.
Yeah, she's a job. She's a working woman. Are you kidding me?
And then the dressing room scene right before the lament, she says that she's getting a raise so that they can get married. Like she's getting a raise so they can get married. And
love that line as well.
And basically when he like congratulates her and stuff, and she says something about like, well, you wouldn't make me stop working, would you? And he doesn't say anything negative to it. So she's already like saying, I'm going to continue to work even after we like get married. And he doesn't oppose it. He's reading a book that she suggested. She's reading a book on psychology, which leads into the lament. Like she's given brains. Like it turns into something funny, but like she's reading a book on psychology. Like it's just really cool that in the movie she brings up, one, that she gets a raise, and two, that she's not going to stop working. Which the weight of that in the 50s, in the 1950s, there's a huge propaganda to do with the nuclear family. Being a mother was what was pushed into the world because all the men were coming back from World War II, in which all of their jobs were taken by women. And now women realized they wanted to work because they got to and got independence. And then there was a huge propaganda push to encourage women to leave work so the men can have their jobs back. So in the 50s, all over television and sitcoms and propaganda from all the newspapers and things was like encouraging women to be mothers and wives and just do that and to stop working. So that's what's happening in the 50s. And this musical comes out and has two working women as their leads, neither of which have any desire to leave working once they're married. That's a big deal to put on stage. So to go a step further and actually say that in the movie, I'm like, that's a really cool thing.
I like that a lot. I'm really glad you found that difference because that's really cool.
I was like, I heard that and I went, oh my God. And then I was like, I have to look at the script. Like I have to find it, and do that. So it was a really cool thing. The thing that, did you listen to Pet Me Papa?
Pet Me Papa?
Which is one of the hot box numbers in the movie. Good. You're probably better off because the original number, Bushel and a Peck, is the I love you, bushel and a peck. That one.
That one I listened to.
So that one's cute.
I did not listen to the movie songs.
Yeah, there actually isn't a soundtrack because of lots of other reasons. But
amazing. Can't wait to hear about that
later. Bushel and a Peck is a cutesy little number, very innocent, but you have that can see how it's a showgirl number,
Yeah.
I think it was the director. I think it was the director. It might have been the producer. Did not like Bushel and a Peck. So they wrote a new number called Pet Me Papa.
I hate the name. That's why when you were like, did you listen to this? I had to restate it because I'm like, this can't be.
No, that's the name.
The right name.
That's the name.
Oh no.
Sam Goldwyn didn't like it. Whatever he did he didn't like it. So they
Wait, Sam Goldwyn didn't like Bushel and a Peck?
Wasn't really his thing. He didn't really like it. So they wrote Pet Me Papa. And I just wrote which feels gross.
It feels so uncomfortable.
Which feels gross. So they're all in the movie, they're all dressed in cat-like outfits. You know, like fishnets, cat corsets, like little ears and tails.
No.
And the whole number is as gross as it sounds. Like they perform it really well. Like they do, like the girls are doing their best. You know, like it's a full.
There's so many things wrong with it being a cat too.
Oh yeah, no, they're all kitty cats. There's lots of references about like treating them nice and you know be like all that kind of stuff. Which and I look at that and I look at Bushel and a Peck and I'm like Bushel and a Peck. They're in like farm outfits and like.
Oh my god!
This cutesy little farm number, and in the movie they just go way too far in the fact that
it's Pet Me Papa.
It's Pet Me Papa is the name, and is constantly said in the song.
I'm gonna scar all of our listeners. I'm so sorry. Pet My Pussy Papa.
Oh yeah, like it's definitely like
that
Pet
is
Me Papa
with the cat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry for everyone to put that image in your mind.
Oh, like
but it was in my mind, and now it's all in yours.
But it's so like,
my gosh.
This is 1955. What? Like, what are we doing? How did that pass?
So much.
So that's.
I'm glad that's not in the musical. I'm glad that's not things that people do.
Yeah, no one gets to do that in the world.
Ew.
Because gross. It's real gross.
Ew.
Vivian Blaine crushes it, but like, ew. Every aspect of it. Like, she's still not like, they do well performing it, but like, it's gross. Do not recommend at all.
Oh, man. Make that a joke song and do that at a bar.
Yeah. Like,
that's what that, like, cabaret.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your drinks and let's sing the musical's like, worst numbers.
Yes. Yeah. It's not even that catchy. Like, it's not, I couldn't sing it for you because it's not catchy and I didn't like it. So I didn't listen to it. You know, like I watched the movie.
Nope.
So,
it's a big old nope for me.
And luckily
it's giving disgusting.
I don't believe that song, her singing that song exists recorded, at least the original movie. So that because Frank Sinatra, like Rosemary, had a contract with Capitol Records, so like they couldn't really record the soundtrack, and Vivian had already recorded her numbers, so they only released like 3 songs with Brando and Gene Simmons because they're the ones who didn't have a version of that song. So like the song Adelaide that was written for Frank Sinatra did not get recorded. So that's one of the things that like really was gross in the movie transition, and that like it was unnecessary. It was just completely unnecessary to the plot. I do love Take Back Your Mink. I think it's hilarious.
That's another one.
It's both.
That was added?
Yeah, that's in the original Broadway show, and it's the second Hotbox number where they're basically like, take back all your clothes.
Oh, yes. Okay,
so funny.
Yes.
It's so funny. I really love it. It's a very tasteful way to strip in a showgirl show. Like, love it.
What about the women themselves? Like deep diving into those 2 characters.
So Adelaide could have very easily been a ditzy blonde. Like that's kind of like the traditional
especially
character.
From the source material outside that phenomenal ending.
Yeah.
Totally could have done that.
Yeah. And I think she's the one who I don't think changes in the show. Like I don't think she grows. She doesn't change.
No. Which is fine. It does bother me immensely that she's been engaged to this. Because how long she's been with this guy? She didn't start dating him 14 years ago. Yeah. So she's been with him for more than 14 years because she's been engaged to this guy for 14. That's the only thing that bothers me. Yeah. That is very like sexist, and in that time period too. Yeah. That's not good. That's not a positive thing. That's not something to be sought after.
No, it's definitely not.
A woman who's tied to a man who doesn't want you for 14 years. Well, so like that cheapened her for me. Yeah. Because she's great. I love her as a person. She's wildly entertaining. Mm-hmm. But that was the only thing that bothered me because it doesn't age to now. It doesn't really make sense then. It just makes her kind of like a joke.
It does make her a joke, which is what she's built in the show to do, unfortunately.
But which is a bummer because she's so fun.
It is a bummer. And I will say it is like that's her fatal flaw. Like that is her flaw, is that she cannot let this guy go. Mm-hmm. Does that exist in the world? Yes, there are people that do that, unfortunately. Is it something we thrive to do? No, absolutely not. Not something you should ever want to do or that you should think is okay or that it's going to end up okay.
Well, and the way he treats her too. I'm like, you're not even like being like worth it.
Well, and what
like she walks out on him how many times during the show?
Well, what I will say is that there are what helps this situation, which is still not a good situation, is that Nathan Detroit is faced with why do you stay with her, and he flat out says I'm in love with her. Like they both say I'm in love with the other person, and there's the whole song about like dolls having control over guys because of you know being in love and stuff.
Well, and the guys and dolls number,
like that's
the whole thing.
Actually,
this
really
is what
cool.
all the guys do for our dolls.
Yeah, like that's actually kind of a cool song. Like it's really sweet because they're also not making fun of the guys. They're just like this is what happens. So it's not as toxic as it could have been because they're really not poking fun.
And if they are poking fun, it's at themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like look what we're doing for these women.
Detroit is added to the song in the movie and then gets a couple lines saying like I'm one of them. So he owns that he's like, he can't quit her either.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of ownership of both of them refusing to leave.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make it necessarily better, but does like make you not hate him as much.
Yes.
Which helps.
And he is very charming.
Yes.
He is a very charming character. So I understand. And she's obviously immensely charming.
Yes. Yeah.
You love her the whole time.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that bothers me, that that Sarah has a little bit of a more modern edge to her.
Yeah.
That she is in a much more relatable and much more modern situation.
Yeah.
Because you can easily throw that, okay, it's not a bet, but like how many people go on online internet dates from like Hinge and Tinder? Yeah. Like I would argue that that's a similar situation of her being thrown in with this person who, do you really know all the circumstances and who they are? You know?
Yeah.
But they're both like, despite Adelaide not seeming to grow a lot, she's still very well rounded.
Yes. And that's why I was happy. Like she isn't just the dumb bimbo character. Like they give her the comedy of the psychology book, which also is funny because like psychology has changed so much. So the like,
oh my gosh,
you have a cold because of your like relationship is hilarious. She's interested in books. She's mentioned doing that. Like she has friends. In the musical, she actually comes from a bridal shower that is thrown for her because she believes she's actually going to elope. So like she's carrying all of these like kitchen things, and it's so charming because she's like, I get to have a kitchen, you know? So it's like she has friends, and her and Sarah actually meet a couple times in the musical.
The musical they do.
They do, but not in the movie. So they
don't.
When
do they meet in the movie?
They meet.
Do they not?
They don't really meet at all in the movie until the end where they both get married at the same time.
Huh.
So they're very, very separate in the movie. And in the musical, Skye introduces Adelaide to Sarah because they're walking home from Havana and she's walking with all the kitchen presents like across the street. So that's when they first interact.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
I did not realize. Because then it sets up the parallel a little better.
Yeah.
Better. I haven't seen the musical movie, but the musical's up. Like, I feel like it makes sense because then you're almost like touching base.
Yeah.
Because even when they do interact, especially the first half, it's not like they're having big, deep conversations until their duet later in the show. But like, it's still nice to have that touch base of intersecting of the couples.
Yeah.
And have it not just be the men.
Yeah. Like that's why I love the duet Marry the Man Today. I love it.
Yes.
Because you see in a very hetero-heavy era and a very hetero-heavy relationships, because that's the only relationships allowed at that point on stage. Heteronormative, like nature of it. Even in people singing, this is the only time that you have two women duetting. Like you have the hot box like chorus like as well.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
It's not the same. So this is plot specific character development song. It's also not just a cutesy song. Like this is like them confiding in each other. So these two women actually end up coming together from different worlds, having similar issues with not wanting to be like end up with the guy they ended up falling in love with, and confiding in each other to marry the man today and then fix him tomorrow. Like that's like there's
and like you said, it's plot. There's meat to it. It's not like as much as the sisters duet for My Christmas is Iconic.
Yeah.
That was designed to be something for their, like a gig.
Yeah.
Like they're both sisters and they have this little routine.
It's cute.
It's cute. It's cute and it's fun.
Yeah.
Everyone loves it, but it doesn't have the weight
Yeah.
that Mary the Adelaide has.
Yeah. And so I was so disappointed when they cut it because, I mean, the movie's really long. The musical's a little bit longer. So like they had to cut something, but
Yeah.
that's just such a cool thing because you don't see like the female duet is so iconic now, but it was still something that usually you only got one if you got any.
Right.
And for it to be a character driven moment was huge.
So did they not give them any? They didn't write like a different duet. They just
cut it. They didn't have them ever cross paths. Like they didn't have.
So they never even had this scene.
No, they never had the
of
scene
them
of
discussing
confidence.
any of it.
No.
What?
Because this is the only time you get to actually know how they feel.
Yes.
This is the only time you actually get to see them having feelings.
This is the bathroom talk. This is the bathroom talk. Men, this is what women do in the bathrooms. At the bar is we go there and we're like, okay, but this guy, give me the rundown. Is it worth it?
Yeah. But it's that
and
moment.
This is it. That's that scene.
Yeah. It's great.
Which is so relatable to women and people.
Yeah.
But still, like, what?
It's So I was really disappointed because I was so excited to read that scene in the musical. Because I knew the song existed, but I hadn't read the script. And I'd only seen the movie before I deep dived into this. So like reading that scene, I'm like, oh, they're like, they have their confidants for each other. And like, oh, we actually get to know how they feel about their situation, how they're not just happy, how they realize, like how Adelaide realizes how awful of a situation it is, how Sarah realizes that she shouldn't be in love with this guy, but she is, like admitting it when she hasn't been able to admit her feelings most of this musical. Like
because she's been the level-headed.
She's
like,
level-headed or drunk.
No, I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get into this too deep.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh.
Yeah. So that's a really cool.
That's a bummer to hear about the movie, but it is a very cool scene for women, for these two characters.
Yes.
And for that time period.
Yeah, it's really great. And I think Sarah does change. I think she grows.
I would say. Yeah.
It's not like a whole bunch. But like I think she opens up to, I think she's afraid of expanding what she knows to be right. So I think what the musical teaches Sarah is that there's gray in the world and that sometimes good can be in the gray and sometimes bad can be in the gray. So I do think that Sarah does have an arc from Skye also being a very gentlemanly person, never taking advantage of her, just trying to get her home when she's drunk.
Right,
like, all of that. I think she has to have that night of crazy and that romance she never really... I'll know, like when my
she
love
wasn't
comes
even
along.
looking for. Yeah.
It's really endearing, and I think I do think that she grows, which is nice to see. Which is why they're the main plot of the show. For being honest,
and they both grow. It's kind of fun that they grow together. Like they kind of like it's insinuated at the end. Yeah, that they kind of meet in the middle. Yeah, of their backgrounds, if you will.
Oh yeah, she definitely
because he joins the band, right?
He does. So in the musical, they don't have a double wedding. In the musical, he is seen as Adelaide's getting ready to be married.
Yes.
Playing the drum like he does in the short story and having already been married to Miss Sarah Brown. Which is also interesting that we don't see that wedding of the main plot in the musical. Yeah. We see Nathan and Adelaide get married. So I think that's really interesting. But I
wonder if it's still like putting on the gag of like these people who got together way sooner also still got married before you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good like little.
On the bright
there.
side, I bet Adelaide has just storage units of stuff from all the bridal showers she's had.
Right. Like just
she could house multiple homes, or like or in a house she could furnish multiple homes. Yes. I feel
Well, and something that I find really funny about Adelaide too is that she knows how out of place the fact that they've engaged so long to the point in which she writes her mother that she is already married, has
she lies
5 children, fully lies to Rhode Island mom to keep face.
And that's like the opening statement in the musical for her is like, dude, when are we doing it? I've been lying for the past like 10 plus years.
Yep. That's dedication and very sad.
How have you dodged your mom that hard.
Yeah, like, have you not been back to Rhode Island? Like, what life are we living here?
Mom, you can't come visit. You have grandkids? Absolutely not. Do not come.
Oh, he's in boarding school. Our son is in boarding school. His name's Nathan Detroit Jr. Like,
no, he doesn't have a room here because why would he? Because he's in boarding school.
Right?
No, we have no pictures of him. No, that's he's photosensitive.
Yep.
Like what?
Yeah, like that's impressive that she has kept up that facade for so long. The fact that she had to is sad, but like impressive. This ruse that you're like living a fantasy life in the letters to your mom.
Yes.
So that's a joy. But Adelaide doesn't really change. I think she has that horrible flaw, which is the only thing that really feels kind of gross about the whole situation is that like leave her, like leave him. Like I don't know what you want, leave him. But there are people in the world who can't quite quit the people they should.
Doesn't make it good though.
Doesn't make it good.
Doesn't mean that it aged well.
No,
doesn't
make it good. Just because it exists in the world does not make it good.
Right.
But it's
very good that both of the characters are very charming.
Yes.
And there's good music along with it. And
yes.
That helps.
Well, and everyone's very kind.
Yes.
In the show. Like there's not really a villain other than like the inspector who might catch him. You know?
Yeah.
But there's not really a hardcore villain or like evil doing. There's some cheating that happens, which if you're in a gambler in the sewer. Like, I don't know what you expect. And I think that Skye does grow and change. I do believe that. And I don't think Detroit does. So I think that the parallels follow that as well.
The only change would be that he finally got married to her.
Which is very situational. He got like kind of pushed into doing that and pressured by everyone else to do it and force it to happen.
Which also is not great.
No, it's not great.
So.
Well, I didn't like, okay. So I didn't like, they do it in the musical and the movie that as soon as they get married and he says, I do, Detroit sneezes. Which it like, mirroring, it's a joke. It's a bit because she sneezed for the engagement. Now he sneezed because he's a married man. And that's like such a toxically.
I hate that.
Old way of looking at marriage. Yeah. So that's a little like, we have to end on that really.
Yeah.
Makes me like go, oh, Adelaide, it's not going to get better.
No, you will end in divorce or hating each other.
Yeah. I will say Sumi is a hilarious song to like watch perform. Sumi is a hilarious number. It feels like a couple that's been together for a long time fighting. And I did appreciate that reality in the song. So I did like that was kind of cool.
Good.
I actually was really impressed with these women, and I think that they have a lot of agency to make their own decisions, whether or not like the decision to leave is the one choice she does not make.
Right. No.
But
Adelaide, she doesn't have as much agency as Sarah.
Yeah. But she is independent, which is really cool. Like we have two working independent women. We have
is she independent if she needs this man?
Well, she's independent financially. That's like she's financially independent, which is unique.
For sure. Get your bank, girl. She's absolutely
but not so much like not self-sufficient. Like as a person. So that that plays into it. But I think I don't know, for a Golden Age musical, having that female duet as a actual plot confidant
that is huge. That whole scene is huge. I love it.
Yeah. It's really, really great. From the initial things that you got to watch of it, like, was there anything that like surprised you about the characters, or were they kind of on track with what you thought?
No, I mean, like from what I read, the bits that I could see of the this is a high school production.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like it all lined up with what the characters would do. It also made me like Adelaide more, seeing her.
Yeah.
Because like I said, when you read her on the page, it's like, and your only thing is you want this guy who doesn't want to marry you, but says he's in love with you, but doesn't want to marry you.
Yeah.
Like that's not like the biggest red flag on the planet.
Yep.
I liked her more.
Good.
Seeing her.
Yeah.
Because she is so fun. And like you said, it's nicer for her to be older. It's nicer for her to be, because she's older, she is more confident in herself. Because it's never a question of, I'm not good enough for you.
No, it's not
you know
like,
what I mean?
Oh my God, he's going to leave me.
Yeah,
Like, there's
no.
never that
She's
question.
like, you're not getting anything better than me. Like,
Truth.
you know, so like, which like agreed.
Yeah.
Dude. So yeah, I would say of the bits I saw, I enjoyed Adelaide more seeing her than reading her.
I can
Sarah
agree with that.
read pretty much as is, but not in a bad way. Not
No,
you
yeah.
know.
I actually think that knowing that they started very much with the music and then tried to find a plot that fit, I was actually very impressed with the tightness of the plot.
Yes.
It's very
I would
comedy
agree.
heavy. There's no risk. You go see Guys and Dolls, and there's no risk of like having too many emotions. Like it's just like very standard, very classic 1950s structure of musicals where you have the two opposing forces from different worlds that end up coming together, and they have to go through the musical to end up together.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. You have the secondary side plot that is more comedic, which is really standard in the 1950s structure as well. So there's all like I think it did so well because they have big ensemble numbers. That was also really big in the 50s. The craps game, the choreography is fantastic. The original choreography is fantastic.
It's nice that the men and women too are not the same.
Yeah.
Because it's like we've only talked about White Christmas, so I'm sorry I keep referencing that. And I'm sure we will only continue to reference the musicals
we've done,
the ones we've done. But, you know, they were two of the same, they weren't opposites attract, they were the same person. These are the two like very similar personalities getting together.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy that this was not that.
Yeah.
They were not, maybe they had, you know, I would argue that Adelaide and Nathan have similar mannerisms in how they go about things.
Yes.
But they are not, you can't argue that they're the same person.
No. And
I
actually think that Adelaide is more developed than Nathan Detroit in this musical.
I could see that as well.
He has a very singular goal, and that is his sole purpose in the entire show.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any likes. He doesn't have any like, Adelaide is given a background of desires that Detroit is not. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Sky has a fully fledged like complex, but
for sure. And Sky and Sarah are both.
Yes.
They're not even close to be like at the beginning.
Yes.
You're like, oh, I see why Nathan picked you. Because like, absolutely not. Yeah. Why on earth would you guys ever get together?
The intellect gets her. You know, like that's like I really love that Sarah doesn't get enraptured with him. Like she's very much like, I see right through you. She sees right through all of his
He falls for
BS.
her first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the tension comes when he starts quoting the Bible. And he starts like being able to actually legitimately know things. And all of a sudden, it's not just a gambler who's a dumb like sinner.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
he's well read.
Yeah. He's not like, obviously, like they always cast like a gorgeous person to play Sky. That's why Brando was hired, I guarantee. But you see her start getting more attracted to him first because of his intellect. And then you see the romance click later. But like, it's all about like him surprising her.
That's so nice.
And I'm like,
yeah.
I really like that.
Them surprising each other, really.
Yeah. He's like surprised in Havana when she starts throwing punches, you know? Like,
yeah.
It's really cool. And they have
these
those
are two
moments
very
of growth.
solid women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really happy. I'm like, oh, it's Guys and Dolls. They'll just be froofy and whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute. Right. We have two developed characters here.
For sure. And sometimes you need that. Not every musical or piece of work should be something that, something that we need to yell at you for.
Yeah.
I think it really is nice to have those gaps between so that we can better appreciate and be mentally ready to appreciate the deep, dark shows. So,
I think that's why it's lived. I think that's why it's lived so long is because it's a very safe show. People recognize it, but it's joy. It's joy and color. Yeah. So many people go full blown with the color palettes of this show because it's a stylized version of Gamblers in New York.
Yeah. And since it's like fake Manhattan,
you
can put it in whatever time period you want.
Yeah.
It can be any people. It can be any race.
Yeah.
It can be,
yeah, exactly.
Honestly, it doesn't matter if they're male or female.
Oh, like
they could be any gender. Like, I agree with you fully. I feel like this show could very easily be done in any format and it would not change the plot at all.
It wouldn't. Like, there's some like funny things that are like stylized 40s, stuff, but at the end of the day, like, it's about the relationships of people and gambling, which has not really changed that much in the centuries that it's existed. So
still gambling.
Like, it's timeless in that way, even though it's put in a very specific stylized place. It's such a fun show to watch. And the characters, because of that, I didn't have many hopes for when I started deep diving it. Right. So I was really happy. I was really happy to find that. I love Adelaide more. I was really impressed the movie actually added to her character.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, like that's really cool.
That was a really good catch.
Sarah always felt really stiff and like standard to me, but then like deep diving into like her a little bit more felt like she was far more complex and well-rounded as a character to have those like trying to cover up and trying to be this impeccable straight-laced person and then showing that she's a human when she loosens up a little bit. Yes. So I think that's a really cool side of it, but I was really happy with this one. I was very excited to talk about it.
This was very fun. I'm glad you allayed me a little bit on the... Because I was getting a little angry with Adelaide and this whole purpose being that until I watched a few clips and I'm like, okay, she's charming. Yeah. And then we talked about it, so I feel a little better. I mean, still annoyed, but better. Feel much better.
Yes. Good. Like her lament is just a classic comedic song. And it's so hard. Like it is so hard to perform it in such an intelligent way that is funny and like it's great. And I love that we got to see an original Adelaide in the movie.
That's so
cool. And I'm really sad that none of the others kind of got to move over. But what can you do? Because some of the songs were cut purely because Brando couldn't sing and they didn't want to put more of his numbers in the movie. Fair. So that's why a lot of them were cut. We're going to pretend that Pet Me Papa doesn't exist because no one ever needs to like listen to that again. And I do have a cool fun fact about Vivian Blaine.
I'm ready.
Because she's a queen. So she was a huge AIDS activist. In 1984, she retired from show business, but she had people and friends that died of AIDS. So she was asked one of the first ever AIDS benefits in the 80s that ever existed.
That's awesome.
She was like the headlining face of it. Like she was a famous person who went full out and said...
And which one did she play?
She played Adelaide.
Oh.
So Adelaide...
She wanted to be Miss Sarah and became her in the end.
Yeah, right? So she became the face of this huge event that was like getting a whole bunch of like shit thrown at it because it was the first ever like in the 80s trying to raise money for AIDS. I believe it was in Los Angeles.
The AIDS epidemic.
Yeah. And what's fun is so like they put on this whole performance. There was a lot of people walking on eggshells because it was the first time people were kind of doing that and it was not approved by a lot of people and all of that BS that's back there. But Gene Simmons, who was Sarah in the movie, showed up to the event too.
Aww, and she was awesome.
And she was an Oscar nominee. Like she became an A-list star.
Yeah. And
so she was a surprise guest. She's one of the quotes when Vivian was talking about it was that Gene Simmons got up from her table and joined the end of the line on her own because they were doing like a concert. Yeah. When it came time, the matron said, "Here's one of the ladies who made it in a big way," and she came out and she was like one of the A-list stars amongst a lot of B-movie actresses, and like she was a bona fide movie star that was at this age event. So both the movie Adelaide and Sarah were at one of the first ever AIDS benefit concerts.
That's so cool.
I think that's just so cool.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like Blaine instantly stepped forward when asked to do it and became like one of the reasons other people agreed to because someone actually like with the power. Yeah, with the power was like, absolutely. She said, let's raise some money for these people. And she's quoted saying, well, somebody has to. Somebody has to start it. And I just wish there were a lot of people who are following in my footsteps, but that will come.
I love it.
Yeah.
Vivian we love Blaine women getting shit done.
It was great. So I thought that was really cool because that's 30 years after this movie. Go Vivian Blaine.
Woo!
Boo Frank Loesser because what?
I hate everything about that.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate. But yay for these two female characters and guys and dolls. Who would have thunk?
Yeah, this is great. This was very refreshing, and I'm glad it went so well.
Yeah. But I have a lot of tea about the petty men to come in after hours.
So I can't wait to sip. Hopefully you guys can too over at Patreon.
Yes, I love it. I love it. See you there. Thank you all for
joining
us on this little adventure through stylized Times Square. And I hope you join us next week.
Yes. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Damsels in Dialogue. Next week, we stroll through the streets of London, where a very different kind of bet changes the life of Eliza Doolittle in Lerner and Lowe's My Fair Lady.
If you enjoyed what you heard today, you can help us reach even more listeners by subscribing to the podcast and leaving a rating or comment on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you are listening.
If you want to join us for even more discussions and opinions about Guys and Dolls or any of our episodes, head over to our Patreon. There you can support the podcast and unlock an entire library of exclusive after-hour video podcasts, with a new one arriving each month. You can also unlock research notes, bloopers, and more.
Follow us on social media and at our website on damselsindialogue.podbean.com. Until next time, this has been Damsels in Dialogue.
Have a nice day.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Royal Princess Parties, LLC, and is produced by Hello Out There Audio, part of Hello Out There Productions.